Hi everyone, in today's video I wanted to scrapbook a double spread layout with the last couple of photos I have from our Nashville trip. I still have a lot of these 4x4 photos, so it's sometimes a little bit of an awkward shape if all your photos are this size, because it kind of limits you on doing so much, but I wanted to still scrapbook this on one final layout just so I have these last photos documented. And the paper I'm going to use is a part of the Echo Park travel paper. So they have a couple collections out. These two papers are from the Born to Travel, and then this one is from Let's Go Travel collection. This one's really hard to see, but it's a very, very dark green, and in the background you can see things like little visa stamps. It's kind of hard to see, to be honest, but I kind of like how muted this is because the patterns on these two papers are a little bit more intense. So these are just little cameras, and then we have this beautiful little gingham print. So I'm just going to scooch all this over and take our Versamats, and then I'm going to go ahead and get started on cutting down this paper. All right, so I grabbed my two Versamats and just some white cardstock, and I did go ahead and cut up the main pieces of paper in the sizes that I think that I'm gonna go with. So I have like a 1-inch strip that I'm gonna put to the side right here. And then I have two of the bigger ones that I wanna put here in the middle, and I need to make sure they're facing the right side up. Not that you can really or hardly see it, but I feel like it's gonna bother me if I do. So I'm just gonna turn this one needs to go around, and then have this strip at the side. I might cut this up even smaller. Currently, this is kind of just what I'm thinking of using. And then the other papers, so I want to have the little camera paper and the plaid paper as the border strips coming across. And I cut these up in, I think these are both 2-inch strips, just because I wanted enough to play with, because I don't want this like dark orange to be that thick of a border. I might actually do this even smaller, something like that, and then do the same thing on the other side, something like this. And then, so I'd shown you guys the photos that I want to use on this layout. So I want these two coming down right here, so I have enough space for journaling. And then I think what I want to do with the other 4 is just have them coming across the page here. And I did one of the photos, I adhered down on some sage cardstock just to see if I liked how that looked with the dark green background, and I really, really do. So what I'm going to do is I also want these photos then backed on some sage green. All right, so I went ahead and matted my photos on some sage green cardstock. So I did the individual mats for these photos here, and then I did this larger piece for our 2 photos right here. I do want to add a bit more color or paper to the layout before I start with any embellishments. So I was going through my stash, and I did find that I had this couple of leftover pieces of the Let's Take the Trip, which is another travel layout or themed collection from Echo Park. And I like how this paper kind of has that orangey tones like our bottom 2 papers here. So I was thinking that would look cute as like a little accent piece, and then we can always, I like bringing like a little accent piece, and then we can always bring it into the layout as like a landing zone for our embellishments, because I do feel like we're gonna need something here. The only thing I was thinking, something that I do like to do is like similar photos, put them together in a flip flap, and then have our embellishments right here. But I don't think I want to have too many embellishments, so I think for this time I'm gonna leave it like that. So I might just cut out something here that's kind of TBD. But I did cut out a little strip of that chevron paper, and I'm just gonna scooch that underneath this strip or photo mat, just to have that kind of like poking out right there. I don't want too much because I don't want this all to be looking messy after a while. to bring this down just a little bit. And then I was also looking through my papers, and I still have this really beautiful mix-in paper pack from Close to My Heart. This is May June, and within that paper there is this like really pretty limeade polka dot that has some distressed feel towards it because it has a little bit of blending on it, and I just like the softer green with the darker green we had, so I thought it'd be cute to have a little piece sticking out here as well, similar to that, but just introduce a little bit more colors without too much. We're all staying kind of within the same, or like the greens and the oranges, so we're not like introducing too many new colors. And I really like that. I think that looks really cute. And then I could definitely use this or the orange as some accents here. So we'll see, because I do like to bring it across to the other side. So we'll see how we can incorporate that. I think I really like all of this. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and adhere this all down off camera, and then I'll be back just so we can start with our embellishments. The only thing I am thinking of doing is I'll have a bit of ink blending here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just adhere this like bottom piece of this down so I can still lift this up, and then this I'll just have as a loose piece because I'm not too sure what color or where exactly. So that is something I'm going to do when I'm just going to stick all of this down. So I'll be right back. All right, so I have everything adhered down. So I have my photos on the photo mats and then this little paper strip. The only thing I still need to adhere down is our little green piece that I want to have underneath the dark. I'm not entirely sure if I do want to do the ink blending just because there's not a whole lot of room left and I feel like it might just be too much. So I'm just going to go ahead and adhere this down underneath that piece I had not had any glue attached to yet. So I'm going to bring that in here because what I want to do is I actually do want to add my like main journaling spot here. I think the only thing I will do is I am going to ink up the edges of this in limeade just so it's a bit brighter. Okay, so I'm just going to go all along these edges. I'm not going to do this right side because I know I'm just going to squish that underneath the darker green. So I'm going to go all around this with just like a little ink dauber, and I don't want to do too much, but I want enough because it has like a white background. It does tend to just fade into our white cardstock that we have. All right, so I've inked up those edges and now I'm just gonna scooch that right underneath here. And I feel like that's definitely a lot more noticeable against that white background. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and put some glue down here as well, since I know I'm just gonna commit to this strip. Okay, so I've got my main paper pieces down. The only thing I might want to do is bring one of these paper items to the other side. I feel like this is slightly crooked. Let me pull this out just a little bit more. All right, so now comes the fun stuff, or the fun part. So in terms of embellishments, I went through my stash, and the first thing I want to add is a little border right here. And this is a Creative Memories border from the Welcome Home package. And it's a really beautiful little green leaf with little blue flowers, and when you flip it around there's the white flowers, but I kind of like the blue flowers because it's really dark blue. So I want that strip right here, and I know I'm going to commit to that, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut this off right here. Sorry if my head is slightly in the frame. I just want to make sure I cut this correctly. And then I think because this is kind of like an awkward shape, I'm just going to use my Barely glue to adhere this down. So I'm just going to add that to this little border here. And then I want to be careful because I know once I put this down, this glue is quite unforgiving. I need to make sure that's attached correctly. Do I mind if that's at the top, or do I want to flip it around? Actually want to flip it around. Okay. want that right near the edge of that green paper. Also don't want it crooked. See, I can already feel it adhere down. So I think that is stuck down. I think that looks really cute. And I do have a teeny piece left over that I might bring into the other side here. Not too sure about that. So then the next elements I want to add are just more like my embellishments and for a spot for my journaling. So what I thought would be cute, since this is the day that we went to the Museum of Country Music, I die cut this on my Cricut. It's like a little guitar. And I inked up these edges just to make it look a little bit more distressed. This was one of the images, well, actually these are two images from Cricut Access that I kind of manipulated a little bit because I wanted not too much noise here in the middle so I can add my journaling. I should have enough space right here because I don't have like a ton to say. And what I want to do is I want to have this like slightly underneath here. Because I don't know if I want to have it overlapping this border. I think I might just do it like a little bit crooked like that, just like it's leaning against. That would be cute. I think I need to figure out like what exactly I want to say, and make sure that I might just scooch this over just a little bit. Hang on. That is the magic about repositional. I can just move this over because I want to make sure. The only thing I'm debating is having it here, and then you would scooch this over to the middle here, something like that. Hang on. All right, so I kind of was looking at this a bit more, and because we have all this green here, I do prefer it maybe right here. So I'm going to add, or not add, I'm going to just move this little brown piece up a little bit more so that it just like barely overlaps this, and then I'll have a bigger piece showing, and then I'll have this strip right here. Actually, let me scooch that down just a tiny bit, just so I have space for a little title. Okay, so I like that, and then I'll have my journaling on the little guitar here. And then a couple of other elements I found in some just like ephemera packs I had is from the Simple Stories. I have the like journal bits and pieces of the Here and There collection, which is kind of like a travel themed collection. I found this little title that says Memories. So I think I want to add that up here on some foam tape. I think I need to scooch this down just a tad more, just so this doesn't look too squashed up there. Yeah, I think that's perfect. And then I'll have this on some foam tape right here. And then within that same pack, there were these like little sentiment journal pieces that says on our way, favorite place, we are here. There were a couple more of these word pieces, so I'm not too sure how many I want to use. But I have some space right here, so I think I want to add, I like this orange because it fits the theme really nicely. We could do like a couple, I don't know if that's weird that they're pointing different directions. I don't think so. And then what else do we have? This is the same color, of course, but I do like that. We could kind of stay in a theme here. And then we got some of that green. I don't know. We can fiddle around with these. I think that's maybe a bit much. I think I like that. Something like that. And then in that same like ephemera pieces, I did really like this one because it allows some space for some stamping. So I was maybe thinking of adding that here, and then I could add that little border to this little ephemera piece as well. I'm not too sure. It's all kind of dry fitting, and then we can see what we like to keep. One of the old Stampin' Up sets, this is called Next Destination. I love these little icons. They're kind of like a sketch design. I don't know how well you can see these. I color these in and stuck these on here because I like when I flip through everything, it just catches my eye better. And I did go ahead and stamp and die cut and then colored in 2 of the pieces. I used the watercolor pencils. They're really, really great to color these in. And I think I want to add a couple of these to this layout. So I might do something like that. I don't know if I should scooch this down. No, I don't like that. Something like that. I do think that's cute. I could have this like right here, or I could have it flipped. No, I don't like that. So I'll have something like this. And then I have this cute little backpack that we could add to this little cluster down here. I might just have this like coming up like that. That's cute. I think that's nice. And then I do want to go ahead, hang on, there's some here. I do want to go ahead and also add maybe a stamp or a sentiment right here on this one. Okay, so the stamp I'm going to use is from the Let's Go Anywhere card making set from Close to My Heart, and it's this Let's Explore Together stamp. So I'm just going to scooch this over this whole page so that way I can flip this over and we can stamp it directly on this little icon right here, paper right here. So I'm going to take my stamp block, and then in terms of the color that I'm going to use, I have two options. So either I want to take like a very dark green. So I'm probably just going to go with Pine from Close to My Heart because it's also like a really, really dark green color. Now I hope I have used this before, but just to be sure, I'm going to take this paper right here to test. Also, I haven't used this ink in a while, so I just want to make sure that this stamps nicely just because I only have one of these tags. Okay, yeah, I really like how that looks and I like the color. So I'm gonna go ahead and stamp that directly to this tag. So it's kind of creepy to do it when you don't have any extra. To the center. All right, so we stamped that down and that worked out really, really nicely. So I'm just going to scooch that here or put this right on top. I'm not too sure. And I'm gonna close all this up and move this over. And then there's a couple things I want to add. So I'm gonna scooch this back over here and flip this around. So there's a couple little embellishments that I want to add. So we had that little backpack that I had, but I might put this one here. I'm not too sure because there's another little embellishment piece I want to use that's also from the Simple Stories pack. So I kind of don't love this huge thing. So what we could do is like put that underneath and then have our little backpack. Let's move this up just a little bit and then have our little backpack coming like that. I'm not too sure that I love that combination, or I could put it closer together here. I kind of like that. That looks cute. I'll move this up just a tad. That looks nice. I like that. And then I did go ahead and off camera print my journaling. So I will add that to the little guitar piece in the middle. And then to bring some of the paper that we had added to the left side to the other side, I did go ahead and just cut out two little tag pieces using my tag topper. This is a tag topper I use, and then you just cut out a 2-inch strip. So I'm probably going to add these right here to this photo. I think that way we are able to just bring that paper across to the other side. Oops, I think because this is quite strong, or maybe I kind of like it like that. So I'm probably going to do this, and I always like to die cut out a little circle topper. So I have these in another die set. So I'll just die cut out those pieces. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and do these couple of elements off camera, and I'll just be right back. All right, so I've gone ahead and adhered everything down. Some of this I stuck up on some foam tape, and I'll bring it up a little bit closer in a minute here. The only thing I wanted to add is I still have a little piece left of that border that we stuck down right here. So I'm just going to add that here at the top. One, I just don't want it to go to waste, and I feel like that ties that in nicely and brings it to the other side. Not that you always have to do that, but I do like the look. So I'm just going to scooch that in right here. So it just comes out of that little tag. And then the only thing I added were my tag toppers. And then I did adhere some of these elements on some foam tape. The last thing I want to do is just add a couple gems, nothing too crazy. So I either have these from Stampin' Up. They're called the neutral adhesive backed sequins, or I have these from Echo Park, which are the Good to Be Home collection. And I do like the dark and this like lighter green, even this, but I think that might just be a little bit too bright. So I'm just gonna have a couple here. I think I'm gonna focus on, depending on like the background of the paper, I'm just gonna focus on these like green colors right here, just to add a couple throughout the layout. All right, so we've got everything adhered down. I'll just pull up close so you guys can see all of the embellishments that we added to our layout, and that way you can also see that ink blending a bit better. So we got our tags with a couple of the gems that I added to the layouts. So all in all, this was a really quick and easy layout to put together using the ephemera pieces and the travel paper from Echo Park. I will tag everything down below or link everything down below, whatever I can still find. I know, for example, this in that Stampin' die set, actually just stamp set from Stampin' Up is retired, but I found this just on like one of those Facebook groups. So I will list a name down below if you are interested. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps me out a lot. And if you've been liking my videos so far, please subscribe to my channel. I would really, really appreciate it. I try to upload at least once a week, so I hope I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye, everyone.